Oh hey, I'm Jocelyn and I am a psychic medium. I'm also a musician and I'm also an artist. I do a lot of stuff. And a lot of you have been asking, how did I become a medium? So buckle up, it's a good story. Here we go. You ready? You ready for this? Okay. So first of all, I fully believe, this is my belief, that everyone is psychic. Everyone can become a medium if they want to and if they're interested in. We are all born with extrasensory perception. It's just a matter of how much are you interested in it and how much do you want to be open and learn more about it. That's all. So it's not a superpower and it's not something that makes me special or different. It just means that I'm very interested in it, and so I've invested some time learning how to do it. So if you're interested in it, you can also learn how to do it. So I grew up very curious about weird stuff, paranormal activity and extra dimensional beings and time travel and all kind of fun stuff. And so when I was a teenager, so the year is 1998, set the scene, suburban New Jersey. I'm a weirdo among a sea of lacrosse players. And I made a friend, a wonderful young woman. And one day I was over at her house. As I was getting ready to leave, I noticed that my friend was looking a little different than she normally did. So she was looking kind of past me. So not making eye contact, but right past, almost as if she was looking at my ear. And I was looking at her and I was like, hey, I kept looking behind, what's going on? What is it? And I see her kind of gently go no, don't do it. And she's mouthing the words, don't do it. And I'm like, what is happening? And just as she does that, I physically felt a finger go into my ear and give me a wet willy. And I jump a million feet in the air. It's ah! So I'm completely in shock. And I say to my friend, what just happened? And she said, without me telling her what I had just felt, she says to me, did you just feel someone's finger in your ear? And I said, yes, I did. I hadn't said anything about that. I said, yes, I did feel someone's finger in my ear. She goes, oh, that was my uncle. He was messing around with you because he knows that you can feel his presence. And I was like, what? Excuse me? Are you kidding me? Okay, first of all, how did you know what just happened? Second of all, your uncle, there's no one here. What's going on? And so she proceeded to explain to me that she was clairvoyant. Now, clair is a prefix meaning clear or spiritual seeing when it's matched with voyant, so clairvoyant, so spiritual seeing. But you can also be clairaudient, which I experience as a musician. So hearing, or clairtangency is spiritual or psychic touch. Things like that. So I experienced a clairtangent moment with her uncle, and she could clairvoyantly see it. So I had the feeling, she had the seeing. So she was explaining this to me, and that her family had lived in that house for many generations, and that many of the people in her family were able to see and interact and communicate with her relatives who still occupied the house. And so I believed her because I just had this undeniable experience. And I had so many questions. I was like, do they wake you up at night? Are they intrusive? Are they watching you do stuff? And she's like, no. And, she explained her experience with it. And it was so illuminating. And as we're sitting there on the couch, I feel a hand on my knee. And I look down, and she, again, validates my experience and says, do you feel a hand on your knee? And I said, yes, I do. And she said, that's my aunt. And she's a little bit less aware that she's non-physical, so she's inviting you to tea. You can just gently tell her, no, thank you. And I was like, okay. Now I would be like, okay, so we're setting boundaries with spirit. Yes, we are setting boundaries. So that was one of the first things that she told me, was that just because we can experience and interact with non-physical people, they're still people, right? So to really give me an opportunity to say, I can interact with this as much as I want or don't want to. If it's feeling too intense or too scary, or if it's feeling, I can say, hey, I'm good, I've had enough. If I'm feeling curious, I can ask for more interaction. And so it really gave me a lot of autonomy at a very young age. I was only 15. She was only a year or two older than me. She was so smart. And she gave me such a strong foundation of learning how to communicate with non-physical people in such like a strengthening way. So needless to say, I was very surprised, but I was so fascinated. So I went home that day, and now her home had been in her family for many generations. My family had moved to our home a few years before that, but the house itself was built in 1902. So when I got home, it was like a light switch flipped on, and I was just like fully aware of all of these energies and all of these, like, okay, there goes a old woman, here comes a child, here comes a man, like just fully. And for me, the way that I experienced it was very energetic at the time. It wasn't, I wasn't seeing physical visions with my, spiritual eye or third eye, but I was really sensing energies, and I had a lot of clairaudient experiences. So I had already been writing music at that point for a few years, and I grew up in a very musical house, so I would hear a lot of things. So one of the things that was the most validating experience that I had at that time was that I kept hearing the name Matthias in my head over and over and over again, like somebody was saying it to me, and to the point where it was kind of getting annoying. And I was like, okay, I hear you, Matthias, whoever you are, Matthias, I get it, you're trying to get through something. So being the Girl Scout that I am, I took my friend and we went to the library, and we went into the town records because that's what you do when you're 15, is you hang out at the library looking at the town records on the microfiche. And we looked up my house, which was, one of the first houses built in the town. And so we looked at my house, and I lived on Clark Street at the time, and we found out that the man who had built and was the first person to live in my house was named Matthias Clark. So that was very validating. That was a fun moment for me and my friend. So years pass, I go to college, and I'm still very kind of like in tune with spaces. Specifically, I'm very kind of sensitive to, energies in a room, and I can really tell when people are kind of, I got my spidey senses on. But, nothing really mind-blowing happened for a really long time, actually. Although I will say that throughout the course of my life, I've had so many synchronicities. I don't know, I just felt connected to something that I couldn't see in a way that was really powerful for me. So fast forward, life happens, life be lifing, story unfolds, things are happening, I'm going on tour, I'm doing this and that. Occasionally I will have a very undeniable experience, but I just would kind of, flow with it and not really think too much about it. So fast forward to the summer of 2019. Now, I had at this point been living alone for a few months. Now, I have never lived alone before. I had always lived with roommates or with a partner, and I was new to living alone. And so I would come home from work and I would be like, I can do whatever I want. And it was so delightful. And I thought to myself, when was the last time that I had like this much solitude, like really good, juicy, like alone time that I just could like relish all day long? And I was remembering, like when I was a teenager, when I was hanging out with that friend of mine, I would have a lot of really long hours in my room, like, just feeling really connected and really, I don't know, it was a good time. So I had a lot of time to myself, which was great. And I was like, I can do whatever I want. What do I want to do? I know. I want to look up YouTube videos about paranormal activity and extra dimensional creatures and aliens and all this stuff. So I started just going down this YouTube rabbit hole of whatever I could find. I just would go so deep in, and I was learning a ton. And again, if it's the kind of thing that's for you, I don't have to convince you. If it's not your thing, I'm also never going to convince you. So whatever, this is my story. So I'm sitting in my apartment alone, watching all these wacky videos and really getting a lot out of it. I'm very much enjoying myself. Now, again, I had had plenty of synchronicities, plenty of unexplainable experiences over the course of that, what was it, 2019, 98, oh my God, almost 20 years. Plenty of stuff had happened in that time. This month, though, was particularly undeniable. What happened was, for a month, I started hearing a voice in my head when I would be walking around out in the world. So I would be on my commute or coming home or going shopping or whatever. I would hear a little voice that said like, okay, go into that subway car, not that one, go into that one. or take a left here when I would normally take a right, or slow down, you're walking too fast. So little directions on like, and it was never a voice being like, or else. It was just kind of like a very firm, like, okay, go into that subway car. It was like a very directional knowing. So I would listen to it and I would do it because, first of all, I'm not rushing home to anybody. I got time to kill. What am I doing? Why not? And second of all, I was very curious to see what would happen when I followed these instincts. So I would just go, okay. So I would get into that subway car. I would run into someone I knew. This happened every day for a month. I ran into a different person I knew from a different like corner of my life. And to be fair, I know a lot of people, but this was very unusual. And the fact that it was always like, go this way. And then I would go, oh, hey, and like literally run into somebody almost immediately. It was a little too much. So I started getting a little freaked out, actually. I was pretty overwhelmed. And I remembered though what my friend had said when I was younger, which was, listen, if it's too much, you can ask the unseen world or the spirit world to kind of slow down and pace yourself a little bit. But if you're curious for more, you can say like, hey, I'm ready, bring it on, And I was like, I'm ready, bring it on. I was really curious to see where this was going to lead. So I got kind of this nudge to just Google, what do you do if you think you're hearing spirit voices? So I found this YouTuber, Nikki Sutton, and one of her videos explained, hey, if you're hearing things, that's called clairaudience. It's actually a thing. That's where I learned that term was from Nikki. And if you're experiencing this, you're not alone. And as it turns out, you can go find other mediums. So find a mediumship circle near you. So now I was like, what? There's nothing wrong with me? Like, what? Okay. So I just took her suggestion and I literally Googled New York medium meetup. Click. Okay. And literally there was one the next day, 2 blocks away from where I was working at the time, 15 minutes after I got off of work, and I had plans that evening with a friend that had gotten canceled. So I was like, okay, very subtle, very, very subtle. So I go. It is July 20th, 2019. And I go to this class and I walk in, and it's at this kind of like holistic healing center. I walk in, there's this very like New York looking medium who is leading this class. She is just amazing. I see her and I'm like, oh, I love you. Like, I'm immediately like, yes, whatever you're teaching, I want to learn from you. So it was the teacher and me and maybe like 5 or 6 other people practicing. And so we were sitting in a circle and I kind of raised my hand like, hi, I'm new. But I felt so eager to be there. I felt like I had been waiting to be in that room my whole life. And we kind of go around and we do some exercises and, kind of nothing really too much to speak of right off the bat. I think we were talking about dreams or something. And then at a certain point, the teacher kind of takes us and pairs us off and says, okay, now you're going to give each other readings. And I raised my hand. I said, well, hi, hello, new guy. I've never done that before. And I swear she looks me right in the eyes and she goes, not in this lifetime, honey. And I was like, okay, like I'm in the right place. So she's like, you do know how to do this. And in fact, you know how to do this. Trust yourself. And she showed me how to protect my energy. So, setting an intention, visualizing a protective shield so that we're making sure that we're only inviting who we want to talk to and not who we don't want to talk to, same as my friend kind of mentioned many years before. And so she's like, protect your energy and trust and just let the rest flow. And everything that comes up, just say it. There's no wrong answers, just see what happens. I'm like, okay, you got it. So she sits me down. There was a man who I'd never met and a woman that I'd never met. And they kind of gave each other readings just to give, show me a little bit how it was done. And then it was my turn to give readings. And I gave 2 readings to these 2 strangers that I'd never seen in my life. And both of them validated information that I was getting from those who were coming through for them. So validation in mediumship talks about, is this something that I could have known any other way, right? So I might be able to Google, oh yeah, you had a family business, or, your father, handed down the family business to you. That's something I could probably find online. A piece of information that I couldn't necessarily find online is that, as he was handing over the torch, he said something very specific to you, and then he said that again during the reading to kind of validate this is the right connection. So I had information like that for these folks. And the guy was like, yep, that's right, that's this person. And then I gave a reading to this woman, and she validated. She's like, yep, that's right, that's who's coming through. And she's crying, and she's like, I'm so proud of you, you're doing great. And I'm like, what is happening right now? So I just did it. And with the help of these amazing teachers and people. And so I walked out of that class, literally, again, like the light switch had flipped on, and I was like, but vibrating. I was like, So a lot of folks, it's not uncommon at all if we want to learn more about psychic abilities and mediumship that folks have to maybe work to turn the volume up on those senses. For me, it hit me like a thunderbolt, and I had to learn how to turn the volume back down so that I could actually just live my normal life, because all of a sudden I was flooded. I couldn't walk down the street without somebody was like, it was just like you were holding 6 radios up to your head and playing 6 different channels all at the same time. It was too much. It was very overwhelming. And I don't say that to discourage anybody from trying to get into this line of work, but that's what happened. But I knew I was on the right path. It felt overwhelming, but I knew it was the right thing, and I knew it was what I wanted to discover, and then I wanted to learn more. So I went home, and I just was like, what's happening? And so I ended up calling a friend a couple days later and telling her, oh my God, you're not gonna believe what happened. This whole thing is, I was kind of freaking out. And she just not miss a beat. She's like, oh, the same thing happened to my friend Jackie. I'm like, what? How is this possible? So thank you, Laura, for putting me in touch with Jackie. So she gives me this woman, Jackie Pierce's number. And turns out her friend Jackie Pierce is a medium and teaches classes. And she's like, you want to learn how to do this? You want to learn how to integrate this into your day-to-day life? Come on down. I got you. So I met with Jackie on Zoom, and we started working together, and I just started learning from her. And she really, by the way, I also want to mention, I have an amazing therapist who I told about this right away. So if you think you're having experiences like this, talk to your people. There's nothing wrong with you. This is very normal. It's just taboo. We just don't talk about it. So let's start talking about it, because you know what? It's fun. It's cool. It's safe. It's actually really beautiful to connect with people who have departed and connect and see the world from a perspective that I could never see it from. I can't see things. I'm like the frog in the well, I'm doing a great job hanging out in my well, doing well stuff. But it turns out there's a whole other world out there, and mediumship for me gives me glimpses into what that world is. And part of that is connecting people with the people that they love who have passed. That's only one aspect of it, but it's an amazing gift that I get to offer to people. So I started working with Jackie, and within 4 months, she's like, okay, you're ready to start charging for your readings. And I was like, what? How? What? No, I'm a baby at this. She's like, do you need a permission slip? Because I will write you one. And I was like, okay. So I started giving readings very early on. And I'm always still learning. I love taking classes and brushing up and connecting with other mediums. And I love to trade readings with other mediums because it helps me learn more about my practice. And I continue to want to learn as much about this practice as I possibly can, because it is infinite, and literally anything that I know will only barely begin to scratch the surface of what this work could possibly be. But it's incredibly, tremendously meaningful for me to get to do this work. And I just want to encourage anybody who's curious about it to trust yourself. Trust yourself. You can do this. This is real. It really is happening. There's so much more to this world than we can possibly see. So that's my story. So if you're ever interested or curious about a reading, I would love to connect with you. And if you're going through something similar, trust yourself. It took me a long time to get to the place where I am today, where I could really be confident about this and talk about it so openly. So don't judge yourself wherever you're at. Just be where you're at and know that I'm with you on your journey.